It is largely about the message, Kieran. So in 3 weeks' time, we know National Cabinet will meet for this crucial meeting to ease some COVID-19 restrictions with the number of cases now so low. What the plan is expected to involve is a change in rules around public gatherings and a change in messaging around having to stay at home. It is hoped that change in messaging will boost the retail sector for one. Have a look at that curve. A phenomenal series of events here with 0 extra cases in WA and Queensland, 1 in Victoria overnight. Right now, we are being told to stay at home, except for groceries or the care of others. That definition, as I understand it, will be widened in 3 weeks' time to allow more free movement. There are also plans to suggest a rostered system for people returning to their workplaces, Kieran. So just as is happening in New South Wales schools, where people are being told to send their children 1 day a week and it gets staggered up, you could have some workers encouraged to attend on Mondays, some on Tuesdays and so on, to get workplaces back up and moving, with most of us now told to work at home. There are some concerns that with this relaxation and with schools going back at the same time, that people will blame school openings for further outbreaks and will protest that schools should be shut again, even if the outbreaks have nothing to do with the schools. There's also debate within the states about how to ease out of restrictions. Should it be a 4-stage process, big step outs, or a 15-stage process? What has been put to me is a potential order for the easing of restrictions is schools first, then retail areas, then hospitality and cafes, believe it or not, although that's not in the cards next month. Then eventually you get to public gatherings and even back up to 100 limit. That seems a long way off at the moment. There is some merit to this cafes argument. Hong Kong, I'm told, has lifted restrictions on cafes, but has a maximum of 4 people from one group to a table and 2 metres between tables. So this makes a bit of sense to me. Perhaps you could have cafes come back with just 25% of the normal patrons allowed in. That would be a start. We know New South Wales has implemented, as I said, this staged system of a return to schooling, 1 day a week and scaling up. Other states still talking about schools. We know WA, Mark McGowan's got them coming back, but the independents aren't always towing the line there. Other states are discussing a 50-50 system. So your child would be at school once every 2 days and then homeschooling the other day, as long as social distancing plays a part. That seems to have some merit as well. Look, Scott Morrison again today used this term about the road to recovery, Kieran, but there are concerns amongst health officials about a second wave and a third wave of this virus once things start opening up. That is one of the reasons the PM mentioned again today there needs to be a capacity to get on top of clusters or outbreaks of cases, and they're all working on that. In fact, state officials don't like this road to recovery talk. They think it's premature and another peak will surely come once the social restrictions come off. As one state government official said to me this morning, quote, "We are concerned about there not being a vaccine or antiviral treatment for 12 to 18 months, or there never being a vaccine or antiviral treatment. There are concerns this virus will be with us for a very long time." Although Peter Doherty, the expert in this field, was on your program, Kieran, a week or so ago with a different view, more optimism on the vaccine. There's also a belief that once restrictions are lifted, we have to get used to the idea that more people will get sick and more people die. We just have to work as hard as we can to prevent that. So why can't we lift the restrictions on Monday or this weekend, given the low numbers? Well, as you just said, Kieran, governments want to bed down the messaging on social distancing and staying at home for the next 3 weeks. I guess while this happens, we've seen the cost to business and jobs. It's horrific out there. Get ready for this too. It's becoming increasingly clear that New South Wales and other states will split on their approach from Victoria, that Victoria will remain more hardline. If you're in Victoria, it seems there will be tougher restrictions after this 3-week period, particularly on schools. National Cabinet tomorrow, we can expect more fleshing out of the return to elective surgery, maybe some talk on the coronavirus app. I'll get to that in a minute. Last night on Paul Murray Live, Scott Morrison made it clear that to act too quickly too in easing the restrictions might not just hurt us on the health front, but ultimately on the economic front. Have a listen.
We've got to where we are quicker than we thought we would, and I'm hoping we're able to get to where we want to be quicker than we might have originally estimated. But we've got to take that day by day, and we can't get impatient about it. Impatience on these things could lead to an even worse situation, which would mean you'd have to lock down again. And if you had to do that, then the economic pain would be worse, and that's what I'm also trying to avoid.
OK, but we have to have a return sooner or later, I guess, or an easing of restrictions sooner or later. They've set this 3 weeks, 4 weeks and now 3 weeks. Now, Brendan Murphy, the Chief Medical Officer at the COVID Committee today, the Senate Committee, was talking about a potential return for community sport as one of the first areas out of restriction in 3 weeks' time. This goes a bit counter to Scott Morrison's position that he is about returning to schools and workplaces first. So let's hear from Brendan Murphy first on this, and then what the PM said in response to our own Eliza Edwards at the press conference a short time ago.
We certainly would not be contemplating large-scale gatherings, but certainly some relaxation of the size of small groups is possible. There are a range of measures that they've asked us to consider, things like community sport, some retail measures. All of those things will be in the mix. I personally feel that community sport is a really important thing, and there are ways to make it safer, but National Cabinet will have to weigh up the public health risks versus the clear benefits of re-establishing community sport.
Until we have that advice before us, I wouldn't be offering a view on that. What we are seeking to do is focus on those activities that are more low health risk and more high economic value. My priorities are to get kids back to school, to get people back to work.
School and work from the PM. Brendan Murphy's evidence also contained, Kieran, the surprising admission there was an training exercise involving Commonwealth authorities and New South Wales Health just last year about the possibility of a cruise ship bringing in a pandemic, a virus. How amazing. I mean, how did they get it so wrong when it actually happened?
Yeah, exactly. Fair point. If they'd had a dry run and it eventuates in what is now the subject of a commission of inquiry. Let's go back to a point you touched on, the app. This is going to be a big focus of the National Cabinet over the next 48 hours, but also for the Prime Minister. His message today was this is a health response. The data, the information will go after its use by health officials. What's your sense of it? Do you think Australians will embrace this? The civic-mindedness of our population, I think, has surprised a lot in terms of people getting on board and doing the right thing and listening to the restrictions. Do you think they'll do it with the app?
Well, they want at least 40% uptake of this app on our phones, where if you went into a venue, for example, and you came into contact with someone, were near their phone for 15 minutes, they ended up with COVID, you could be contacted quickly. That seems ambitious to me, when in Singapore, which is normally quite a compliant sort of place with free speech and the government there, they've only had about 20% uptake. But we have seen Australians really do the right thing and comply in terms of the social distancing measures, Kieran, so who knows? What's been put to me is it's like it's digitising what's happening manually anyway, and it can save lives. Now, if they do this effectively in the communication campaign the Prime Minister spoke about, where it's about saving lives, surely the public has to take that seriously. Reading up on the Singapore example, it seems you would have to have the app up and active at all times on your phone for it to work, so it's not foolproof. It's been put to me South Korea's success has been because of good contact tracing using stuff like this. Singapore, we know, has had outbreaks because of foreign workers cooped up in dormitories. Attorney General Christian Porter's given me a statement on the app amidst all the privacy concerns. It says, law enforcement agencies will not be provided access to information collected via the app. There you go, he's assuring you it can't be part of a criminal investigation. Specific regulatory action will be taken to prevent such access for law enforcement agencies at both Commonwealth, state, territory level. Further details of this aspect of the app will be provided when officially launched. However, the government has already made the decision not to make any information collected by the app available for other purposes, including law enforcement investigations. Frankly, right now, Kieran, when they're investigating matters, the police, they're able to look at where your phone's been. They're able to track where you've been. So it's not a completely foreign thing in that sense. I understand people's concerns, but I think they'll find out that Big Brother's watching them a lot more than they think already. And if it could save lives, there seems to be a valid argument to this.